Yeah, great.
Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Francois du Toit, your wellness coach and naturopathic doctor. I'm honored to have Dr. Gauri Lowe with me today. We're going to be delving into a fascinating discussion about human health, women's healthcare, natural birthing, and the importance of shifting the narrative on women's healthcare, especially. Um, Thank you, Dr. Gauri, for being here for me today.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's good to speak about women's health with someone who's not a woman also, who's valuing that.
I appreciate you. And it is important to emphasize that women are the stewards of society's healthcare. And that's they're the glue that keeps society together. Community life would not exist without women. And as we are, let's say, shifting our consciousness to expanding in wellness, this area is very important and is an area that needs to be taken on. And I would, from this position as a man, encourage every other man, husband, partner to take up their responsibility to steward the healthcare of communities and supporting women in these roles that we're discussing, because so much of this comes from we are educating, we are supporting, and from that understanding, the supports will come.
Yeah.
But let me introduce everyone to you. So Dr. Gauri Lowe is a dedicated and compassionate medical doctor with over 20 years of experience in women's healthcare. And Dr. Lowe has lived and worked between India and South Africa, where she has passionately served women by blending modern medicine with the wisdom of botanicals, Ayurveda, and traditional care. The journey is deeply rooted in the search for the root causes of wellness, guiding women to reconnect with the innate wisdom of their bodies. Dr. Lowe is also a strong advocate for physiological births and has supported numerous home births, bringing a human rights focus to birthing practices. As an author of the upcoming book, Bring the Heart Back to Medicine, Dr. Lowe champions the integration of compassion and technical skill in medical practice, challenging the conditioning that often separates emotional engagement from clinical capability. She's a firm believer in slowing down and returning to the basics of self-care, nutrition, and self-love, empowering women to take control of their health and well-being.
Oh, sounds good.
I'm so honored to have you on. There's so many touching points here.
Yeah.
I would love if you could tell our audience, how's your experience been living between India and South Africa, and what took you there and brought you back?
I've had a long history with India. I first went there when I was about 21 years old, but it started a few years prior to that with just already a love of the culture and the philosophy. And I stepped into a training center, like an ashram, for several years. So that's my faith. So that is kind of what takes me back in terms of that community and the culture, and wanting to really connect my family with that in a lifestyle. So in India, there's a specific community we were going to, and that was taking us back there. And then I would just carry on my love and my work. So I would just do the same there. So I would have women's circles and consults and home births and then teaching. So I kind of I just flow into wherever I was. This is what I do. So I'd have the same connections with women, the same connections with the births, but now with completely different culture and actually quite an international culture.
Yes.
So lots of Russians, Americans, Europeans, very, very mixed, as well as being local and in a village. So it was rural India.
This was in India that this international group came together.
Yeah, so there's a community there which is mostly international. There's like international, Russian, and Indian. So those are the big population.
What a multicultural group to be able to kind of like be in community with and learn from.
And really appreciate the essence of women that I was, just able to kind of witness and appreciate, because down in the basics of like relating to our body and what we want and what we wish and how we feel when we told things, and there's a sameness, and that is very tender. It's like it connects
I can
us,
feel that.
you know. Yeah.
I'm curious, did you have any particular aha moments when it came to this understanding of how women have been kind of led down a path where they're not really in touch with their bodies? You could relate to home births or not?
Yeah, probably very many, but my first one was my own birth. After my own birth, I was in third year medicine when I had my first child at home. I had my first child, and I had a home birth. So I would, train in the hospital. I wrote my exams at 35 weeks, and then I had my home birth at 39 weeks. And then I had a year off with my child, and then I re-entered the next year, and I carried on medicine. And then when I came back to medicine, I had a very beautiful birth. That was my aha moment in feeling the depth of what birth is and how a woman can really feel that and the empowerment around that. And I left that birth feeling, wow, every woman can have this experience or can have the opportunity to have that experience. You can't control how birth goes. And then I went back to clinical studies, and I was in the wards and I was in the maternity clinics, and I saw something very, very different. And that was kind of a crashing aha moment, because I realized not only were women not getting this opportunity, but they were actually getting treated really badly at this time. And I became quite a child maternity rights in childbirth advocate in my last few years of studying. And that's one way to do it, but it's a hard way to do it, because it takes a lot of fight. And if you're someone who wants to work with, frequencies of love in healing, you have to reflect on that and what is the best way to approach things. So that was kind of quite anger driven in a sense, but that was the aha moment that came to mind. Yeah, but you asked, was really wanting to change that for women and bringing a respect and a culture of birthing your child into your family, not like going to hospital because someone else has to do it.
Yeah. My audience is very familiar with, let's say, the shortcomings of many medical practices. And I should preface this by saying, for me, I recognize that even though anyone can visit my website, listen to my journey to natural medicine, I understand that it was because conventional medical care failed me that we turned to natural medicine, and that in essence over a period of time, but like in a couple of months, transformative, in a year, basically cured. This is my experience. But also later on, because of acute appendicitis, medical care saved my life by removing my appendix. So I do honor what, medicine offers. And I do see that acute care medicine is this amazing, heroic field that saves many, many lives.
Absolutely.
And this is to contrast more, not live in contrast, more just to compare that in any field, any person, any treatment system, it's got its strengths, it's got its weaknesses. And I feel I can't say it better than when I saw my first medical doctor as a patient. This was already 8 years ago. And he said something like, Francois, after speaking to you, he came to see me for a cold or a flu, and he wanted to learn about how it could improve his immune system. But at the end of his conversation, as we were walking out actually to the car, he told me, Francois, I suddenly realized we are brilliant with acute care medicine, but we are horrible with chronic care medicine. And I still hold on to that statement as being like, this is the conversation that we want to have. And yes, I'm so grateful that you're sharing that you experienced this beautiful birthing journey, and you saw a stark contrast to that in the medical system.
Yes.
And I believe it sets you on a path to enable women to experience what you experienced, and especially that connection to, like, the family can be involved, the community can be involved. There's that support and love that you get when there's a different environment at play.
Yeah. And I do, if you had to look at where everything starts, birth is a point
Yes.
that you can look at also. And
but that's, it's just so true. It's always a journey. There's so much,
yeah. And just, the insight into how to support that best to avoid the acute is, there's so many.
That's where lifestyle comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is difficult right now because there's a lot in our world which is harmful for us, really, in so many ways in our lifestyle, that if we don't make quite, thought out, intentional changes and choices in our lifestyle, if we just go with the flow of what social media, of the processed foods, of our amounts of time we sleep, we're not heading for what our body actually needs to, never mind thrive, survive.
Yes, that's true.
That's where we are also with medicine now. But having as you say, the emergency services, there's so many things to be grateful for in medicine. And it's definitely a part of birth because things are unpredictable.
Yes.
And you always have to have that.
Go wrong. That's so true.
Yeah. And that's why working together is actually really important.
Yeah.
It's not that there's an either or better or worse. It's very personal birth. And it always triggers a lot of things for people. So I think, you have to have your care team, and one layer isn't better or less than the other, because we all really need it. And if you need your acute surgeon, you really want that relationship.
I hear you. And you're reminding me of, the majority of where I've encountered women that want to have a natural birth or support for birth is because they Google and they learn that Chinese acupuncture is very effective in helping a woman to go into labor.
Yes.
So those women that end up at my door are the ones that didn't have that support. They are now in an acute care situation, which is not the strength of, in general speak of, Chinese medicine, or let's say natural medicine is very effective and it's helpful. But I recognize if you had an intervention, someone like yourself, 9 months ago or years ago, you would have started to develop that self-care team and you would have walked a completely different path. And I think this is really what we're drawing attention to for people to understand that. Have grace for yourself where you are. You might be in an acute care situation right now. Everyone will be somewhere like that in their lives that are listening. But passing this on to your friends and your family and the next generation to let them understand that prevention is better than cure, for example, and surrounding yourself with this care team that you're talking about.
Yes, I think that's a very important point. And actually, midwifery and obstetrics do recognize that one of the most helpful or significant parts of successful healthy outcomes is continuous led midwifery care, which means that the woman sees they have a consistent care with their caregiver. So you develop this relationship.
Yes.
And then in the process of, you'll have your birth team, you'll have, your partner, you have someone to support you, your doula, because that's also shown a lot of evidence to be really transformational in a woman's experience of pain and in good outcomes. So you want your support there. And then you're right. The people who are thinking about this are educating themselves, and there's a lot of information out there to filter through and educate yourself on what resonates with you so that you can make your own choices. But the woman, when we don't feel we can make our choices, there's a disconnect from our body.
What I'm thinking about now is I'm sure we're going to get a lot of responses from the audience about where could I start to read up on this? What resources are available? Maybe you have a couple of resources we could make available alongside this this recording.
Absolutely.
Or just maybe some resources for them to look up.
So there's a doctor in Australia her name's Dr. Sarah Buckley, and she has done. You have a lot of these kind of experts who kind of focus on one part of it. So Sarah Buckley has focused on the hormones during birth. and she's gone very academic in like master's or PhD in explaining why the hormones flow as they do, what the hormones are, and how you can support those hormones so that they do flow in the order that we want them, and how we can understand how to set the birthing room and the environment and what we might want to avoid and what we might want to bring in. And then she has now gone on to, she's got lots of resources to read through, and a book on how the interventions affect that sequence of hormones. And the hormones have to do with our bonding. They have to do with our physical body in terms of our uterus contracting afterwards, our breasts making appropriate milk and the milk coming in, baby latching, baby bonding, babies' stress levels and heart rates. It's all an intertwined system.
Yeah.
So she explains how different things affect that. So, and then I've also summarized her work, and I have that document that's called A Symphony of Labor.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And what was coming up in my mind is that, I'm a big advocate of helping people to enter into flow states, which is called, let's say in the more competitive fields, peak performance. Synonyms, it means the same thing. And one thing that people would love to delve into is understanding that there's a process of work or effort, but then it leads to effortlessness. So we're kind of talking about the education where you are strategically, in essence, taking care of your well-being, getting your support team or your community to support you. That's maybe some of the effort. But then when life is like played out, you'll find there is many, many, many moments of effortlessness. Like, for example, the body is always geared to a flow state, and that you're talking about a hormonal flow state, which is, cascading one from the next to the next to the next, because the natural biological systems and the support structure and the environment is conducive to that.
Exactly.
And so, that makes, this is what, in essence, people strive for in life, and I can starting to understand it for birthing. A sense of ease. You're talking about a sense of ease, supported by many factors.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I really experienced in my births, was that connection is so powerful when you're pregnant and in labor, to connect with that flow and to get out of your mind. So that's a big part of labor, is to get out of the cerebral activity. You don't want your cortex working. You want your primal instincts and your primal brain to actually be operating at that time. And to do that, you need to feel fundamentally safe. If anything, you need to feel safe. And feeling safe means different things for different people.
Exactly. So, because of the experiences and traumas.
Yeah. So feeling safe for me felt right at home. But it doesn't mean that that's what feels right for everyone.
Yeah.
So where you feel safe should be because that is where you'll be able to, your body will go into flow. You can't go into flow if you don't feel safe.
Sure. Now you're making me think of this is why mindfulness is such a, wave in society and becoming so well recognized scientific as one of the most important facets of daily life or practice. We could even talk about meditation, because then you're creating a safe space in your mind, being able to, in essence, also switch off the cognitive side of us that's, driving us so much of the time.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are pushing a lot of people into another passionate topic of mine, which is mental wellness and anxiety, or so many diagnoses now of adult ADHD.
Yes.
Which I think is just really a response to not being able to stop. It's
mental chatter.
Press the off button.
Yeah, so true. Me and my sister were diagnosed ADHD. My sister went on medication. She responded really poorly to them, and because of her, the experiences she had, I was thankful to not go the medical path. The pharmaceutical path.
Right.
But it's been the background of our lives to recognize that because of so many factors, we developed this ADHD, dyslexia side of things, and hyperactivity, anxiety. And for me, the curative thing has been to delve into these states of meditation and breathing practices. And it's just been completely transformative to find a stillness in my mind. After years, I'm talking about 80% of my life where the mental chatter was overwhelming. You mentioned something very powerful when we were discussing before. We were going into this discussion about Dr. Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
He's come up on my YouTube feed, and I know why. The algorithms are smart, people. I'll recognize that. It can either lead you into growth or it can lead you into deep wells of depression. I'll warn people about that. That happened to me during COVID because of all the conspiracy theories. But in any case, the algorithms picked up. This is a man I must listen to. And what he was talking about made me recognize, yes, there's also these underlying factors that led to my anxiety because of trauma.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to go into this as much today, but this is the background of what we are both passionate about. Mental health, helping people understand that this comes from experiences that everyone has the opportunity to resolve in their life with the right tools.
Yeah, and even deeper, what if those symptoms that you're calling anxiety and all those things that make you into those ADHD things, what if those were actually kind of messages from the body, not that you're wrong and that you need correcting, which is kind of the message that goes out, but that what you are feeling is right and you need to change something in your life for you to optimally function. Because what we are surrounded with naturally, like I said, is not supportive of what we need to function.
I relate to that, and I immediately think of the example of like boys in school is a mix for kind of like chaos.
100%.
Settings making, and I'm not against the educational system. It has so much value,
but
making boys to sit still, that's a recipe for disaster. For long extended periods of time, because of the physicality. And I mean, so much research is going out to show that every single human being learns better from practical hands-on experience.
The government is also speaking about that right now.
Yeah, I recognize that if I had, basically it's like steam building up, like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
If I had the means to say, like, teacher, or in my environment where I was in, my steam is building up, I need to go and climb a tree now.
Yeah.
My life story would have been different.
Yeah.
But we're not aware of this kind of like the body, the wisdom of the body, the innate wisdom of the body telling us this is why things are coming up.
9-year-olds should have the pressure of having to express that. The teacher should hold the space so that they can recognize it, I think. So I think we have like this one way of education, and if you're not fitting into it, you've got those different labels. But I think you just need a different way of actually educating.
That's also what I in essence believe. It's a different educational system,
But I want to come back to a point.
Yes, please do, draw us back.
The symptoms that we call anxiety and that, you see, I don't believe in the DSM-4. I don't subscribe to psychiatry as it is. So because I think a lot of these emotions we label as symptoms are very real responses to a pretty messed up life or event that's happened, or because I see women getting put on antidepressants for miscarriage. But grieving and being sad is a really important process to go through. So I've read a lot, and I've done Kelly Brogan's course, and she was a holistic psychiatrist. She was an MD psychiatrist.
Wow.
She put down her pen and she hasn't prescribed, and she's gone deeply into, she wrote The Mind of Your Own. So a lot of it is...
She's married to Sayed G.
Well, they aren't anymore.
Oh, okay. Used to be. See, I'm behind with following them.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to understand that, she's been a real leader in especially the gut-brain connection. I believe that's one of the big shifts that she made from pharmaceutical to gut support.
So that's bringing in nutrition. I think that just underlies with women's health and mental wellness, anything where we need to start, it comes back to nutrition And there's functional medicine and functional psychiatry, which focuses on micronutrients in mental wellness. So it's not only that life is too busy and lifestyle and we need to find time to meditate, but we actually need, I think a lot of us are malnourished.
That's so true.
Or undernourished because we're not eating food anymore.
It's so important what you're saying. You know, I talk a lot about the 7 pillars of wellness, or the 7 foundations of wellness, which in essence I have inherited from speakers much further along than me that have, you know, literally been trailblazers to bring this to my awareness.
Yeah.
And one of the pillars used to be, it always has been from their expertise, about high quality, nutrient dense food.
Exactly.
That's one of the pillars.
Yeah.
I changed my version of it to gut health.
Okay.
But with understanding, when I'm trying to say that is that doesn't matter what you eat. If you have a bad gut, you won't digest that food. So I'm thinking about more the big picture of things. But in essence, if I had to take, because even any one of those pillars could be broken down to so many different important, essential teachings.
Yeah.
Basically, gut health is for me the umbrella for
exactly.
Then nutrition, then probiotics, and then maybe whatever not else.
And I'd add sugar balance. Balancing your glucose levels.
Yeah.
And because I think that a lot of anxiety symptoms are overlapped with hypoglycemia and sugar.
This is what, so we went to a homeopath when I was 2 years old, and he used this amazing gentleman that cured me and my sister from so many diseases. And he taught my mom that, you know, read labels. No one ever taught us to read labels on the food products. And he said, sugar, yes, cut it out. And he taught us how to look for food preservatives and colorants especially. I remember he was, those stages, for the way for my mom to study was to like lend a book from him, like go make photocopies at the library. In essence, what she was photocopying was pages of all these ingredients or food labels. So she was getting a food label education. So it's so true. People must be aware that there's ingredients in foods, especially sugar, that can really lead the body into a state of imbalance when it comes to, yes, our mental, emotional health.
Yeah, and a lot of inflammation, as well as, the balance, because we're not getting what we need to function. So we're acting, and then our body acts more in a process of survival.
Yeah.
And then that's not flow. And that's quite anxiety provoking also. But I like what you said about the labels, because sometimes it has to be broken down to such practical things. And unfortunately, labels and like it feels, sometimes, somebody will come for a woman's wellness and I have to tell them about the problem with plastics in the kitchen.
Yes.
And it's like really boring and mundane to like go back to this when people are quite conditioned to get from a doctor and a script and something immediate.
Yes.
So
we all want quick fixes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, what? I have to go back into my kitchen, or I have to, look at what I'm putting on my skin, what I'm washing my laundry with. But unfortunately, what we're seeing also in society nowadays is increasing infertility.
Yes.
It's increasing autism. It's increasing chronic diseases, diabetes. So we have to be looking. The problem with a lot of the cleaners is the exogenous hormones.
Yes. The xenoestrogens and talking about,
Yeah, so we're seeing, young boys.
Maybe I should mention to the audience, my limited understanding, plastics mimicking hormones like estrogen.
Yes,
but many other chemicals probably too.
Well, like you were saying, also there's the preservatives and the colorants, and I think the best source to really educate ourselves now, you probably know it, is the EWG.
That's hard for me.
So they've got lots of lists, ewg.org, I think.
Okay. I must have come across some of them, yeah.
And there you can do all your list research.
Yes.
And it's American based, but they have alternatives and they have things to avoid, and they have, which vegetables and fruits are most sprayed, so you rather get them organic, and which ones are least sprayed, so if you don't get them organic, it's not such a big deal. So these are the kind of, this is where health is also.
You're making me think about, I want to spare people from getting into the situation where they're reading labels and they're reading research and they're reading, even a resource like this website, like I've done many different versions and get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And they're just like, screw this, I'm not going to do anything. It's important to prioritize and start with the lowest hanging fruit. What's the thing I can start with today that I can foresee is going to get me the biggest results at this moment? If I had to look at my own life, I mean, this whole journey since I was 2 years old has been a progressive, slow, baby step by baby step journey of removing chemicals and toxins from my life. And I would say that it's important to see that over the long run, see this journey that you're on. I think for myself, like I have done so much effort, not effort, yes, but also just like as a journey of research, slowly and progressively implementing things. Like I had to learn to figure out what deodorants for men are non-toxic. So I had to find sources, find roll-ons, make some versions of it from essential oils because I love aromatherapy. That didn't work so well because it's maybe expensive and it's difficult to make the mixtures, and I'm not that much into recipes. So I find products that I can buy. Skincare.
So do you share also your practice, what you found with your audience to?
Not yet.
Okay.
A lot of my journey has been to educate people on the healthcare, you could say, disasters or diseases they're facing at the moment.
Right.
Because so many people see me for the acute care things, because this is why I became passionate about education. I want to see people not coming to see me when they're in an acute situation. Yeah. But I'd love to share the type of natural care and skincare products that I've, figured out work. Like, for example, in my hair gel. I have to figure out I can go on the internet. There's a reliable supply in Cape Town that does a non-toxic hair gel. It's like, this is the journey, bit by bit. I'm like, I'm away. And I mean, when I was working overseas, in Thailand, I didn't have access to those things. I recognized, like, for 2 years, I was using a really toxic, smelly hair gel for work. And I came back and like, I've got the choice now. I can do my research. Yeah. This is kind of like wherever you're at, grace for yourself. Yes. But put this in the memory bank and see what is going to make the biggest shift in your health for where you're at.
Yeah. Because like you say, it's a journey. And I find that it's almost like we have a relationship with food, or we have a relationship with ourselves in this. And what comes up also is valuing ourselves.
It is. It is a form of self-love or self-care. The more I've grown on this journey of meditation or on breath work, it's actually just in that has been the foundation. Yeah. The more I develop an awareness is that what I'm doing is actually I'm taking care of myself. I'm building self-love. And that means then I can love other people better as well. So it's just not just me that's getting this attention and becoming healthier. It has a ripple effect to everyone that I know and everything around me. I like this quote that I came across. Self-care is not selfish. When that is the mindset, there can be selfishness, like, ego, I must look good, I must be this or that. But if there's a genuineness in your desire to start to fall in love with yourself again, that's maybe a good foundation for people to start with.
Yeah, I think that's a very nice way to put it. And women's health really does lend itself to that, because there's a lot of disconnection that comes from a woman and valuing her body and feeling good and just asking for things we need and rest and
starting to prioritize those things that the signals the body's also giving. I'm thinking maybe now is a good point to mention to people, please do like and subscribe so that you can receive more content like this as support on our desire to educate people more and more for free, like these resources are being made available. You talk about we haven't discussed it yet, but many different ways, the wise body and the importance of going back to basics in self-care. Can you share some practical ways women can reconnect with their bodies?
Yeah. There's a few. I think touch is important. So, and I think that's where I draw on a lot of the traditional practices, or even Ayurveda. So something in Ayurveda which is well known is called Abhyanga, and it's a self-oil massage. You can use, I like sesame oil because I'm sure you're used to sesame oil from Thailand.
I came across it many, many times, yes.
I love sesame oil. It's more neutral, but it's quite a strong blend. And mustard is more heating and coconut is more cooling. So I find sesame is is neutral.
Okay.
But you don't have to be too fussed about the kind of oil. The idea is really to just massage yourself before you shower, and to take that time to like, like care for yourself.
Yes.
Like massage your fingers, massage your toes, massage your feet, massage your knee. My husband was having a knee injury, and then in a yoga class, you give that kind of attention to your body, and we were massaging our knees. I was like, wow, I've never massaged my knee. But, just knowing that kind of connecting with your body is like really tangible, like tactily. And then, massaging so just massaging everywhere. And I think for a woman, including a breast massage, because we have a resistance or have a story about touching ourselves. But I think that's an important part of also knowing your body.
Yeah.
So you know when something's different. So just having that touch. Also, our body doesn't screen like, oh, it's you it's like, it doesn't say, oh, it's you that's touching it. So it actually feels like if you give yourself a hug, you feel hugged, so you can touch yourself. Your body receives that sensation also. So I think that's one important way.
Mm-hmm.
Another way is giving that mindfulness time. It's hard to break through because our minds are very, very busy, and we want to jump into our productivity because it's attached to our sense of value and survival right now.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm learning more and more, especially for what I would say sensitive people, is who are being shown that, we need to do some things to take care of ourselves because the environment isn't supportive for what we need to thrive, is taking that time. And it can be 1 minute, but having that time to really just connect. And sometimes if the mind's too busy, I like box breathing. I'm sure you
Yes, I've come across many times.
And I just even do a three counts. 3 in, 3 hold, 3 out, 3 hold. And really going into those spaces of putting your mind where your breath is. And I find that just kind of, brings a stillness and a connection, deep connection. And then, so that's 2 things. The third thing that comes to mind really is creativity, and having some source of creativity outlet, whether it's baking or making balms or gardening. So I think gardening does a lot for me in that way.
Yes.
Or creating art or writing. I think writing is also, I love writing. Mm-hmm. It helps me to, I think, express my heart.
Yeah.
And to process.
I'm a staunch advocate of journaling.
Yes.
I've been journaling since I was young, and it's something I've only more recently started recognizing has been a saving grace for me. If I didn't have that, this is kind of like we were talking about, like for me at least, when I talk about this intuition or the wise body, I was drawn to start to write since I was young. I would scribble into I would start with a textbook, which was like my English class book, and then I would write from the back page front to the front because those pages were empty. Yeah. Because I was drawn so strongly to it.
Yeah.
And when I reflect back on what I wrote and what journaling has done for me, it's been so healing.
Yeah. So I share that kind of writing passion, but I think everybody has something that they can connect into like that.
It's something that each person is naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
That is that creative outlet that it's expressive and joyful for them to do.
Exactly.
And there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just start by starting, I think. That's what I would tell people.
Yeah. So I would have a lot of stories in my head about, I'm not an artist, so I can't draw.
That's what people, unfortunately, are faced with because of so many different ways that, I guess we were brought up in parenting styles. Was ever been told that as a child, when they just pick up a crayon and they start scribbling, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that happens.
Yeah.
It's play.
Exactly.
Then it's a creative outlet. Yeah, it's good to reframe that in our minds again like that.
Yeah.
Again.
That's what Gabor Mate was speaking about, education. We are speaking about the importance of how we learn when we play.
Yes.
Bringing it back to that.
Yes. Oh, that's wow. That's amazing.
In education.
So you're in the process of writing a book, Bring the Heart Back to Medicine. But you emphasize the compassion the need for compassion in healthcare. How do you see this approach transforming the current medical system?
I think there's lots of different layers to what we experience in the current medical system. I think, my concern is that to basically survive medical training, there's an unspoken kind of thing about, there's such a lack of debriefing. There's such a lack of support to kind of feel and connect. And there's so much trauma in South African training that we don't have time to process and integrate, basically.
I can almost instinctively feel you're leading to that. The only way they can function is by shutting themselves down. Detachment. And
we would have these discussions. It would be open discussions in a subject that was called Becoming a Doctor. And, I remember speaking about that and, breaking bad news. We taught how to break bad news and we discussed coping in that. And that was kind of the main conclusion that was being spoken about. And I was a bit older than my fellow students because I went back to medicine 10 years later, like when I was 26, 27. So about 8 years later. And I had a very different life experience up until that point, delving into the root of healing. And I was very aligned to the root, which was like feeling and connection with source and love.
Yes.
Love as healing and different emotions have frequencies, and I understand how the mind, mental states affects our health, and I could see how we were treated as students and how we were treated in our internship, and how you do certain things and you don't say certain things, because you need your logbook signed, and so you keep quiet. And so what happens? I want to write about this. You see, I want to write about it. Is moral injury. Have you heard of moral injury?
Not by this word. Yeah.
It's heavy because you have to go against your morals. You have to go against your ethics, and you have to witness and endure things and see things that should not be happening. And you can't say anything about it. And how do you deal with that? And that's why there's a filtering process in medicine, and it's survival. And then you get such a knock-on or a dopamine effect or something when you realize you can pivot ego and power.
These people down the dark path, and then only the strongest survive. That in essence can cut that part of themselves off as well.
But this is where I was coming from in my training. I was pre-COVID, but I have gone through. I did 1 year of medicine, then I dropped out to go more into the root of healing. Then I went back and I finished 3 years, had my home birth, and then finished my 3 years. So I've had lots of different kind of perspectives. South Africa, post-apartheid, 94 was when I first got into medicine. That's 94 is when Nelson Mandela became president.
Yes.
And things changed in terms of who was getting let into university. The second time I joined, 60% African females.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but now I was a mature student. So I fitted into that category of getting in rather than a white female. I'm digressing, but this is how the filtering process goes into our becoming a doctor. And who is our doctors now? If we're talking about transforming healthcare, we have to have processes that help doctors integrate the trauma that they are witnessing, as well as the hierarchy in how we are treated. And as students, interns, conserve, and then finally you can become the doctor who's exerting that influence, and you can feel better about
and
yourself.
becomes a repeating cycle. I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I'm reflecting that I really lack a lot of knowledge in terms of the experiences doctors have had and are having, and how the, let's say, the educational side of it is structured. But my passion aligns with yours to say, like, where we are at, we have tools to educate and support every person, especially in the medical field, practitioners, to, in essence, integrate these parts of themselves that they cut off. I had this definition. I think it's called something. It's similar to bipolar fragmentation. What's it called? When you split personality, in essence. They call it different things, but I've heard it explained in many different ways. This is the natural survival response of the body, recognizing that part of yourself that experienced that trauma experience just needs to be separated out in the mind, and that becomes like a split persona. And you can have as many of the traumas that you've had to kind of like segmentize and store it away, and each of these personas are in parts of ourselves that need to be reconciled again back into. This is like Jung talking about integration of the shadow, different ways of saying.
Yeah, there are ways that we have learned to survive as children. They are survival techniques. They are very difficult to process and integrate because they challenge our very sense of survival, because we cannot trust ourselves. That's what the whole medical system's training us from pre-birth. Are you pregnant? You're sick. You must go see someone else who can tell you how to take care of your body, or what.
Yeah. And we're educating us that the body's got an innate wisdom.
Yes.
That will always give you the signs and the signals on how to take care of yourself. It's just a journey of learning that.
It's a language.
Yeah.
I think our body communicates to us in that language, and I think that's what we maybe share.
Yeah.
Is that real understanding and knowing, and it takes maybe a sense of like bravery. I don't know, to step into that.
It does take bravery, because it's the mainstream narrative is that things have always been the way they are. They'll always continue to be the way that they were. But thankfully, there's also a rising amount of voices, especially after during so much of the trauma that's happened during COVID, where people have started to distrust the mainstream narrative and the mainstream treatment models, and they started asking questions. And thankfully, they're turning, and rightfully so, to things that, where can I find the trust in healthcare? I want to trust my medical provider. I want to trust the scientific research. I'm doing a lot of scientific research. And in essence, we are educating people, understanding that the answers are always there, but there are certain paths or tools needed to unlock that understanding that comes from the body.
Yeah. And that's why women's wellness right now is basically limited to pharmaceuticals that can numb it, hormones that can override it, or surgery that can cut it out. And there's no kind of leaning into, well, what is my body saying it needs? Because there's a lot of menstrual symptoms which are expressing a lot of need of what your body needs from women. And sometimes it's not just listening to, okay, pain equals ibuprofen or something like that, or a caster pack. It's listening to those layers, as you were saying, of what else is affecting a woman. And I'm speaking into kind of more family constellation things, or things that we inherit from our maternal line or from our ancestors, which we're not aware of, but affect us in our energy and our kind of our psyche, because, well, we can't even understand it physiologically, because when you were an egg, before you were conceived into an embryo, your mother's egg was made when she was a baby in her mother's womb. That would be used to make her own baby children. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So what was happening in your grandmother's life when she was pregnant with your mother affects, you would think biochemically the egg that was made in your mother's ovaries at that
That's
time.
on a very pure level, genetically minimum, but there's so much more that I'm learning.
Yeah. So then so in those kind of, what was happening, you ask questions, what was happening in your family's line? And
you're talking about epigenetics, at least for people that like to go do scientific research. There's much more to it.
Yes, and Charan Sudar is an epigeneticist too, who speaks a lot about this. She's in the UK, and she just opened it up to that. It's not just like genetics in the DNA, but there's things in the environment and there's things in the culture that affect the expression of those genes.
Expressions. That's what I wanted people just to be aware of. I think this is going really deep.
It's fascinating because that plays a part in women's health. What your grandmother went through plays a part in your perception of life, which will play a part in your health.
It goes back so far. I think we should be wrapping up for, maybe just share, even thank you for, bringing your energy and your care for educating people and being a champion for women's healthcare. Recognizing that you shared a message with me. You had a home birth last night, is that true?
Oh, yes.
I took you up till 2 a.m, I think you said.
Yes. Yeah, I got back at 2.
I honor you for bringing yourself and showing up and in the circumstances. I really trust this will open up people's eyes, and it will especially open up, as like I mentioned in the beginning, in so many of the cases when it comes to healthcare, the women are the champions, and they have to drag the husband to come to see me. Browbeat them. It's like, you need to go for a massage. I really also resonated what you're saying about like getting in touch with ourselves as a massage therapist. I mean, the best thing that I can imagine for people is to actually just be in touch with themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm digressing myself, but this is kind of like this conversation about the supports that we need and the conversations that will lead to people being open to saying, if we want to say it this way, we all need each other. This is kind of like what I'm coming down to. And maybe then just to bring it to a close, are there any ways that the audience can connect with you so they can learn maybe about what you're talking about and share more resources, or maybe just reach out to you specifically for your services?
Yeah. Thank you. I do consult online and locally in George. And I think it's quite easy to follow on my website, which is Dr. Gauri.
I'll leave it in the show notes. Yeah.
And I have been teaching courses online. And right now I've started a membership, a Patreon membership, and I have 2 tiers: birth wisdom and whole woman wellness. And it's been a little bit of a process for me to realize that what I have to say is quite different, and in terms of its perspective, and it's quite a refreshing perspective. And I'm honoring that really by actually dedicating a live Zoom once a month to really important topics that I would kind of say like this. You would want your gynae to know these topics about women's health, but they don't know. So they can't teach you because they don't know. They don't know.
Anyway, know what you've done now.
Yeah, in a kind of in a more concise way, it's going to be the inner secrets. What we really should know about our health that we're not being told.
I really honor you for sharing that information. Please, everyone, reach out.
Radical.
It's important that we're having these conversations, and we need to be open to having the conversations that are, let's say, nuanced to offensive for other people, because this is our step of bravery and courage, because we came from a place of dis-ease and hurt, or like your experience, we had this amazing breakthrough where we recognized this birthing process can be so beautiful. And I want to share it with other people. Why is it not out there? There's reasons. We've mentioned many of them.
And education really helps.
Education is so important. That each
Yeah.
Like each one, teach one.
Yeah.
and maybe to wrap it up, please share this video with everyone that you know
Mm.
that is going through any aspect of what we've discussed, so that they can enable themselves to go through a beautiful journey of health, and it's in so many ways specifically relating to pregnancy and birthing. Thank you.
Yes, and the whole range.
And everything else.
The whole range, because it's difficult to kind of stop the circle and say we're going to start there.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I think our
Wherever you
bodies are pushing us to our optimal shine in essence. And the symptoms are the way it speaks to us.
Yeah. Listen to your body, honor your symptoms, know that there's a deep story behind it, and it's a beautiful journey to uncover and heal on that journey.
Yeah. And don't shame rest.
And make time for your self-care and rest well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Gauri. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. This was lovely. Thanks, Francois.